Hello, this video is about where to wait. If you've seen my earlier videos, you'll know why we're waiting for good value. This video is about what to do while we wait. Why do I do these videos? Because uncertainty creates anxiety. Understanding helps create confidence. The future will always be uncertain. Your financial decisions don't have to be. For over 30 years, I've seen the same questions come up over and over. Will my money last? What if the market crashes? Am I making the right decision? How do I stay calm when everyone else is panicking? And many more, all to do with uncertainty. My videos are here to help answer these questions for you. So why do some investors get it wrong? It's not because they're unintelligent. It's more like because they're human. When everyone else is excited, it's hard not to get excited too. Even when everyone else is panicking, it's hard not to panic. We've all done it. One client story. A client had to move his super and it was sitting in cash. The market was bad value, so we decided not to invest it yet. What will we do with it while we wait for shares to become good value, he asked. Cash is the best option for now, I replied. 6 months later, he asked, is it still in cash? Yes, I replied. But the market's gone up. Haven't I missed out, he asked. 12 months after that, he asked, is it still in cash? Yes, I replied. Oh, that's a relief, he said. The market had gone down quite a bit. We'll come back to him shortly. Sometimes cash isn't the worst investment after all. Sometimes it isn't the best. Let's look at why. Let's say we have this much in shares, quite a lot in the green there. The market is bad value and we want to reduce shares to this, a little bit. Where do we invest the money from selling the shares until shares are good value again? This brings us to today's question. And today's question is, where do I invest if shares are bad value? What do we need? Before choosing an investment, let's think about what we actually need while we're waiting. So, what characteristics should that investment have? We need investments that don't fluctuate much, or fluctuate opposite to the share market. So when the market's going down, they're going up. We also need, it needs to be available when we need it, and get some sort of return would be good as well. Where to invest while we wait? Cash is one option. Alternatives, hybrids, bonds. Let's look at cash first. Cash is an option, but not the best option for a return. It's usually got the lowest return. But sometimes it's the only option. It doesn't fluctuate and it's ready to go anytime. So it ticks a few boxes. Alternatives, these are things like private credit. They usually don't fluctuate much because they aren't priced every day. However, they're not really ready to go anytime. It takes about a month or 3, sometimes more, to get your money out. And it's not reliable when you need it in a hurry. But in a long crash, then you might have time to get the money out. But it's still an option. It gets pretty good returns. They range from 6 to 8%, which is attractive, but still accessibility is a downside. Then there's hybrids. Think of these as investments that lie somewhere between shares and bonds. They usually fluctuate a small amount. They may fluctuate more when the market crashes. Here's an example of their volatility. This one is shares, and that's hybrids. So they're very quick to access. The returns are quite good. They also get tax credits as well. So it's an option, but part of a diversified series of options. Then there's bonds. They do fluctuate, but with interest rates. Also with credit rating changes. So if someone changes the government credit rating, goes down, then bond prices can go down. When share markets crash, they usually rise in value. This is useful. But remember, I said usually. A rise can come from two ways. A flight to safety, in other words, everyone's getting out of shares because they're crashing them. They're crashing because everyone thinks they're scary. And also a drop in interest rates, because usually if there's a big share market crash, the Reserve Bank drops interest rates. Now for some examples of this. Now this is a lot of squiggly lines here, a bit hard to follow, and looks at the returns for bonds, shares, international shares, property, etc. It's a bit complicated, so let's break it down a bit. Let's look at the dot-com bubble crash. That's shares there, that's bonds there. Shares went down and bonds went up a bit, so that was useful. The global financial crisis, that's shares there, that's bonds there. Shares definitely went down and bonds went up. And now COVID, there's shares and bonds. Shares went down and bonds went up a bit. So in summary, bonds usually work to hold money, waiting for a crash. They're easy and fast to access. They pay interest usually better than cash. They can rise in value if interest rates go down, but importantly, they can fall if interest rates go up. So while we're waiting for a crash, interest rates go up. That can be bad for bonds. So in summary, they all have their uses, they all have their faults. As always, the solution is diversification to get a better chance of getting a better return. Results from the past. Remember our client who stayed in cash after he moved his super? Sometimes cash is the only option. That was it for him, and the interest rate was lousy. It was less than 1%. And this is what his portfolio return looked like. So all that time for nearly 18 months got next to no return. Do you think he was a bit worried about waiting? Do you think he thought he might have made the wrong decision? Especially when you compare it to the benchmarks. This is like the averages of different types of funds similar to his. You can see here that in the first part, they went up. You'd really begin to question yourself then, wouldn't you? But he stayed true to the strategy, and eventually it worked out because these others had dropped quite a bit, and his hadn't. And he was able to launch in, start buying into the market again, and ended up doing really well, particularly from not losing money while he was waiting for good value. And here's the results over that time. He got a 5.5% return, which is not great, but when you compare it to the benchmarks, he got about a 2 to 4% better return. Sometimes doing nothing is the right thing to do. Good investing isn't always about being invested. It's about being invested at the right time. And so today's question was, where do I invest if shares are bad value? The answer is, it depends. There are several options. The right one depends on the situation. Successful investing isn't about predicting the future. It's about making sensible decisions when nobody knows what will happen next. I won't ask you to believe this because I say so. I encourage you to test it for yourself, then decide whether it makes sense to you. Would you like to know more? Have a look at my website, give me a call, or check out more videos on my YouTube channel. Now here's a general advice warning. This is a simple galvanized version. This presentation is for educational purposes only. The information is reasonably accurate. Some poetic license has been taken, to a small degree, for explanation purposes, to make it easier to understand. And get advice from an expert before doing anything. The next one is the official version. I'm not going to read it out to you. If you want to read it, pause the video here. Otherwise, and remember, uncertainty creates anxiety. Understanding creates confidence. Thank you.